What's up, everybody? Welcome to FoundFlix. On today's Ending Explained, we're looking at the follow-up to last week's video, The House's October Build 2! 1 year after the first film, the gang are still recovering after being kidnapped by the Blue Skeleton Extreme Haunt group. They decide in order to move on, they must face their fears and head back out on the road to visit more haunted attractions, leading to new terrors when signs of the Blue Skeleton start emerging once more. Right, as we recall from the end of the first film, we left our gang in a pretty grave situation because they were being buried alive. The whole question we were left with is, are the Blue Skeleton actually crazed killers or just the most extreme haunters around? The second film answers this with absolute certainty, especially with the quite wacky and twisty ending. The problem with part 2 is that it feels like a complete retread of the first. It's literally the exact same thing. Where the issue lies is that it's missing that undercurrent of fear provided by the first. This time, it really feels more like our gang is on a vacation, venturing from haunt to haunt with little scares to be had along the way. Sure, the Blue Skeleton is after them again, but they only really just filmed them from a distance, and that's about it until the ending. So it feels like not much really happens until the last 20 minutes or so. This is certainly unfortunate, as there is a lot they could have done to develop the story as it was from the first, rather than just doing a simple rehash. Regardless, the ending does take several big swings that changes our perception of what happened even in the first movie, and really blows up the dynamic between the group in an interesting way. There is quite a bit to look at with how things turn out this time. So let's saddle up for another road trip of spooks with The House's October Build 2, breaking down the story, the important struggle that Brandy is dealing with that shapes her own journey, as well as explaining the twisty ending and what it all means. As in our first entry, we begin with a quote that kind of is at odds with that of the first, all about our increasingly callous society and how humans are the real terror. Now it's argued that times have not become more violent, just more televised, which I guess is true in a way, although I wouldn't necessarily listen to anything that jackass Marilyn Manson has to say, which is beside the point. Anyway, we pick up right where we left off, where our spook-hungry gang are all trapped in their own respective coffins. Yet there is troublingly already a retcon. As we recall, the Blue Skeleton had just finished filling in Brandy's grave, yet that has somehow changed and the hole is now yet to be filled in. Luckily for her, a random cop shows up on the scene, not sure who called them exactly, ordering the masked digger to get out of there. He opens the coffin and she's gone, so maybe they buried her and then dug her up, could be I suppose. She's back in the trunk of a car with the skull guy. They toss some tapes at her feet with her friends' names labeled on them and abruptly peel away, leaving her distraught and alone in the remote barren landscape. After the group's harrowing Halloween misadventures, we jump to 1 year later and don't actually see what befell the boys. Also, it looks like someone bought a drone since the first film, which does kind of break the faux reality style of the whole thing, but it is a pretty shot to be fair. In the aftermath of part 1, our group has bizarrely achieved a newfound fame, learning 24 million people watched the live stream of a girl in a coffin, although the case is still a mystery. Was it a holiday stunt or attempted murder? The Blue Skeleton group still remains a mystery, yet thanks to their no-holds-barred style, are becoming heralded as potentially changing the scare industry forever. While Brandy is completely traumatized by these events, the rest of the boys, not so much. They're actually hoping to capitalize on their fame, and intend to convince Brandy to rejoin the crew. They even know how much it messed her up, reminding them to not say things like extreme, haunt, or anything like that. She comes outside and immediately shuts them down upon seeing them, so they pull out the big guns, showing off videos of them at conventions and various haunted houses. The businesses now want them to promote their stuff, luring her in with the idea that they're actually gonna get paid this time. She's steadfast in not being interested, but they plead that they need her most of all. She's Coffin Girl, the biggest star of the bunch. Well, isn't that something? Regardless, she says no, and they're forced to rethink how to enact their plan without her. It sounds easy enough. They just gotta go to various haunts, post some pictures. Easy money, right? Their first outing is Scream Town, where a guy gets in Mikey's face asking his phobia before shoving him into the house. Creepy dudes pop out and scream, and they come to a familiar piece of art on the wall that resembles their old friend with the porcelain mask. A big snake prop hisses at them, followed by some creepy clowns that pop out all over the place. That's one of the few traditional haunts on their new journey, as the rest are more unique and less fright-based experiences. Next is Paranoia, which is essentially a zombie-themed escape room. The boys do their best to piece the clues together to get the door code, and they fend off a zombie to put a battery in the thing. It clicks in place and the room goes dark. A voice tells them authentication failed, meaning they must have lost. Afterwards, they talk to the owner, who tells them that he's been all around the world. If you're looking for something really extreme, check out Hellbent. After they discuss, they agree that if a Russian tells you to seek something out, don't do it. Well, at least that's better than doing everything in your power to seek it out. Sounds like they might have learned something from last time. No, definitely not, as we find out later. They follow this up with a haunt in an old soap factory, where the story goes they used to put body parts and kids in their soap. Nothing gets you cleaner than bits of gore and children. Everyone knows that. This does have a safe word in place if things get too spooky. Just say uncle and you'll be whisked away to safety. A ghoul sticks Mikey in a trunk, cackling and asking, does it remind him of anything? Yes, obviously. There's a room with everything upside down, which is pretty cool. A guy in a leotard screams out in a weird echoing voice. They enter another room with a young mother holding her fetus. He's coming, she cries. She shoots out another baby, shouting to get it out. In another spot, they're overwhelmed by a nauseous smell, causing Zach to gag. Here they can touch you, which gives things a more intense feel. Mikey's saying that a doctor caressed his beard and made him join him for a little dance. However, just as our crew is back to their old business, it appears that the blue skeleton is as well. We see there's a nearby camera with a blue tinge filming them from up above, showing us that they are back on their radar again. Soon after, their ranks are further filled when Jeff rejoins them and boasts that he has a rap ready for them. Oh great, I'm sure that'll be wonderful. The others tease that they got him a gift, and he can't believe it. It's a drone! See, there you go. I knew somebody got a drone, it was him. Time to put that baby to work up the production values on this bad boy. They immediately put it to use, filming some dope floating shots around a lighthouse. But things aren't so dope when it comes to their commercial prospects. They get off the phone with a client, and without Brandy's involvement, they don't even want these chumps around, and straight up cancel their deal. With vague word of Zach needing the money real bad, they reach out to her in a last-ditch effort to get their beloved coffin girl on board. They promise it won't be anything extreme this time, just easy stuff. She's needled down enough after their constant begging and decides to rejoin the team after all. While Brandy has been traumatized by the experience, Jeff actually says he enjoyed it. For them, if anything, it gave them a new zest for living. For her, she maintains it felt real, as though she was gonna die. But they remind her, well, you know you didn't. She only scowls back that she's doing it for the brothers Bobby and Mikey, and that she needs the money too. Dang, these people are some serious dire straits around here. I didn't want to do it at all, but give me $200 and I'll show up wherever you need. Spook me good. They first have her talk to a specialist in fear about what happened, as well as that elusive boundary between fun and traumatizing. The core of her struggle lies in not knowing if she was going to die, or that they were going to come out laughing at her. What would have happened if the police didn't show up? Not only that, but people that care about her put her in that situation, which made her quite angry to say the least. The doc knows that she took it differently from the boys. It didn't become as real for them as for her. That's also why it's hard for her to trust them now. Do they want her to be there for the experience or to make her the experience? Uh-oh, I wonder which one it is. Doc considers that potentially she could see this experience as a way to reclaim herself, as well as to recapture the fun that she used to have doing haunts. To remind her that indeed, everything is fake. Nothing is gonna hurt her. Brandy wants to agree with this, but every time that she goes back in a haunt, she's taken right back to the coffin. While sitting around drinking absinthe in an abandoned building, Brandy reiterates to the guys, no scary stuff. And they really do appear to adhere to her request, passing through the small town of Anoka, Minnesota. It's the rumored origin for trick-or-treating, which was put in place to distract youngsters doing pranks on the holiday. Always the youngsters to blame. Then it's off to a classic hayride haunt, where they first talk to the owner, who makes a bad joke about not being able to find bodies out in these woods. Once again, our blue skeleton is on their trail, monitoring them from nearby. When it comes to extreme haunts, it sounds as though word of the blue crew has continued to spread. The demon face scare actor mentioning imagining a place up north, where they do things like steal people's shoes, put them in coffins, and shove bags over their heads to waterboard them, which definitely sounds like the Skeleton Gang. This is what Zach is still searching for, which means that he's also already lying to Brandy, and the guy too tells him to seek out Hellbent. Apparently everyone in the Haunted House Network is talking about it, whatever that is, but sounds like it must be big news. They finally go on the ride, and for whatever reason, all the dudes keep focusing their scares on Brandy. There's some flame shoots and another guy with a chainsaw, but overall, no big deal really. As Zach points out, it's just easy money, baby. In another building with pulsing lights, they get separated. One group comes across the doll girl peering from behind a fence. Strangely, when they pan back, she's gone. And the blue guy also hides nearby, filming them undetected. At their next location, everyone first gets made up as a zombie in an unbelievably long sequence dedicated to a zombie pub crawl. Sure, it looks fun and all, but it really drags on. In particular, a zombie brain eating contest featuring the hot dog chomping champ Kobayashi, and guess what? He kicks all their asses. Not even a contest, boys. Leaning further into the zombie theme, they next venture to a zombie 5K. It's like capture the flag, but zombies run up and take your flags, and if you make it through the race, you win. The guy explains when the music stops, you're either one of us or one of them. They make their way through the zones with some cool different apocalyptic landscapes, all with zombies in hot pursuit until the 28 minutes in. After they ask Brandy if she likes it, she gives it 4 skulls out of 5. Bobby inquires if this was more fun for her than a haunted house. Yeah, and it's exercise too. Good times for all. Except for the viewer because it's boring. It's like, I want to go there, but I don't want to watch a movie about it. Back on the road, the skull guy is really upping his game, literally hanging on to the back of the RV. They then pass a sign telling them to seek out Hellbent. Man, they really cannot get away from this thing. Similar to the spooky strip club from last time, they have somehow convinced Brandy to attend Masquerade, with the promise of laser titties, whatever that means. A guy on stage there downs some gasoline and shoots out some sweet fireballs and does another classic freak show trick, jamming a bunch of swords down his gullet. The finale is him lifting a bucket with a brick in it via chains shoved into his eye sockets, which looks most uncomfortable. The same goes for the idea behind Masquerade. It's all kinds of gross and weird like fetish shit like eggs and anuses or people in leather gear crawling around or whatever. And hey, even those much hyped laser titties, how about that? And attention turns back to Brandy, with a big burly dude gushing she's mesmerizing and beautiful. They somehow lose the others, surrounded by a bunch of different puppets. Another big boy with a burned face emerges, grunting, "You only got away 'cause I let you." They push onwards to a room where a guy is getting blasted by jolts of electricity, and another puppet pulls away, revealing that familiar skull mask behind it. Brandy is incensed at the sight, muttering, "Fuck you guys." They then show the employee the footage, but he's baffled. They actually don't even use that kind of mask here. She then confronts the others about it, positive that they did it, and demands a pay raise or she's done with this shit. Bobby argues that they didn't do anything, but she fires back, "You always say that," which is true, gotcha boys. In the RV, they reassure her there are no shenanigans. So they ask Jeff what he saw, and he agrees that it did appear to be the same guy from last year. Zach is still dismissive, thinking that she simply just got scared. They cave and offer her more casts to finish, as there are only a few more haunts to go. She agrees to one more, and they say that they will transfer the money in the morning. Everyone curls up to get some rest, and the blue cam is back, right outside, peeking into a sleeping Bobby in the window. They then put their own grand plan into action, shoving in a pipe through the ceiling that pumps in a bunch of knockout gas. They then make their way in and slink off to another location. The gang wakes up many hours later, worried that they're not going to make it to their next haunt in time. That, it turns out, is the least of their concerns, as when they lift the blinds, they discover they're no longer at the campsite, but rather at a big old abandoned building. A sign up top shows them they wound up where they were looking to be after all, Hellbent. Alright, here we go. Finally, some plot development. Thank you. The door is jammed closed as a suited man in a mask appears. "Seek out," his sign reads, and he thumps his watch to indicate that they gotta wait. When looking at their phones, they're blown away to see that they're in North Carolina, everyone wondering just how the heck that happened. The crew know the blue skeleton well enough that they're not going to be letting them out until nightfall, so they have no choice but to wait until then. As suspected, once darkness comes, they unlock the door, Zach smirking, "Welcome to Hellbent." There's all kinds of clowns flanking the building, along with a guy at the entry blocking it with a massive chainsaw. Seriously, that thing is huge. They're let inside and more clown bros lead them where to go. They instruct them to don some black jackets, ordering them to zip them up all the way so they can no longer see. They leave and things go dark for a moment, and then the lights kick back on. More guys surprise them with chloroform, knocking everyone everyone out almost immediately. Everyone appears passed out, and after a strange transition, Brandy suddenly finds herself alone as usual. Another comes in for her. She begs to be let go, saying she wants nothing to do with any of this. She's pushed into another room where gasoline is being poured over Mikey's head. Someone produces a hairspray DIY flamethrower, setting his head ablaze. Well, that was surprising. It looks like he actually got killed, right? She's dragged to Bobby, strapped to some bed springs, and they pour over what looks like blood on his face, Bobby writhing and choking. He's let loose, continuing to choke, and they thwack him good. Afraid of suffering her own grisly demise, Brandy fights back and snatches his camera, but quickly realizes she has no idea where to go. She picks a random hall, coming to Jeff there hanging dead. And for a moment, it looks like the police show up to her salvation, but it's just another clown messing with her. Another appears, sending her the other way, where she bumps into the doll girl, who has some new friends, as a blonde one, and then another one who appears pregnant enters. She takes the camera and turns it back on Brandy, who shuffles back in terror. Outside, it's daylight already, seeing someone shooting the shot on a drone. I'm not sure who that would be exactly. She is just about to leave, but stops herself, changing her mind. A door loudly creaks open, and more skull masks step out and surround her. Two more carry out a little coffin, placing it right in front of her. She opens it, finding a gun inside, and the masked guys try to stop her and pull off their masks, revealing it's the gang, all somehow alive. They beg her to please put the gun down, all really freaking out. They're flabbergasted by this outcome, as there was supposed to be a check in the coffin, not a gun. They continue asking her to put it down, and she places it in her mouth and pulls the trigger. The guys are in shock, screeching, "What did you do?" But not so fast, it's time for a rewind. Brandy is back at the moment with the three doll girls, who show her scenes on a projector that change everything. We first see the guys from the first movie who accosted her in the bathroom, and for the first time see the guys in their coffins, which are all just housed in the same room together. Unlike Brandy, who was outside in a grave, the cops are here and they're confused, saying they did everything they were asked. When it comes to Brandy, Mike elects to selfishly just leave. Well, thanks a lot. We then jump to the moment where they all got chloroformed, but the guys get up right after, so it was only Brandy who was actually knocked out. The boys are then seen discussing the layout of Hellbent, including things like the bloodboarding, and indeed go into the specifics of all the scenes as we play out. The boys have been actually working in tandem with the Blue Skeleton this whole time, watching them as they create special effects pieces like Mikey's fake head and Jeff's fake arm. Although this doesn't really explain how they were able to make the transition from Mikey's real head to his fake one that they set on fire. It just kind of happened, so yeah, this doesn't quite make sense when you start piecing it together. Okay, oh well, still got all more to go. After this bombshell, they bring her to the coffin with the gun inside, along with a little pouch of blood, which appears to be a squib, a packet with explosives attached used in movies to create gunshot effects. One lady whispers in her ear, and we jump back to now, where everyone is asking her to stop, and she fires, now realizing she used the squib to fake them all out. I'm not sure who activated it or how you were able to put a squib on the back of your head without anyone noticing. Everyone is beside themselves as she gets to her feet. Brandy sneers, "You wanted your big ending. You got it all." They defend that this was supposed to be about her, and they divulge what was their now simple plan. They put her in these situations. They ham it up for the cameras, and boom, their shit goes viral and they make mad cash. They were under the impression the coffin was supposed to have a check, and even they were surprised by the gun being there instead. Brandy tells them that she's done for good with these bozos, despite their many apologies, as the blue skull masked dude watches from above. The shot zooms out and becomes a video on YouTube titled "Coffin Girl Part 2" by the Blue Skeleton, immediately racking up tons of views, becoming the group's next viral hit. Alright, so what the heck exactly happened here? Things got pretty out of hand once they got to Hellbent, and we do leave things on an especially weird note when it comes to the group, everyone just kind of staring at each other. The big takeaway is that at some point after the first film, the Blue Skeleton group approached Zach and the boys to work together in order to capitalize on Brandy's newfound fame as Coffin Girl, as well as take their whole situation to the next level. However, the whole thing is that they were also kind of lying jerks to her the whole time, not really divulging the whole truth about their intentions to basically exploit her for their own gain. So just as before, this entire thing was orchestrated by the Blue Skeleton, leading the gang where they wanted them to go the whole time. And well, ultimately just gas them up and drive them there, I guess. But the Blue Skeleton had other plans in mind, namely to let Brandy get revenge in a sense on her shitty pals. The whole thing is a big switcheroo on the boys, as we took away from after the first film. The boys weren't really impacted at all by what happened because they continued to believe it wasn't real the whole time, while Brandy struggled with there being a real threat threat of death. That's what the Blue crew provides her, to have the others experience in the end. When they remove their mask and try to tell her it's all a joke, she turns the gun on herself. So the whole point is finally they are afraid and think that this is real because it wasn't part of the plan that they were aware of. Now they get to feel how Brandy felt this whole time and really hammer in the guilt they should feel for taking advantage of her, believing for a moment that their actions led to her taking her own life. For once, the joke is on them, and that is the main point of how things pan out. This surprise also works out for the Blue Skeleton's latest video, with not only the popular coffin girl getting to have her just desserts, but also making the guys look like the selfish chumps that they really are. I honestly find this outcome to be quite odd, because for all intents and purposes, it appears that they are actually all good friends up to this point, but the two movies actually make it clear that they are willing to do anything for some cash and a taste of fame. Kind of a bunch of a-holes if you ask me. We don't really get a sense of where things would be going forward with the gang, but I would bet dollars to donuts Brandy is never going to trust her so-called friends ever again. They really messed that whole thing up, especially in part 2. Things officially end in the movie with a pretty lame attempt at a scare. We return to the roadside sign they saw previously, and the Blue Skull guy rearranges the letters to spell out the name of his group. At that moment, the RV drives by, presumably without Brandy on board, and we pan back to the Skull guy, who opens his mouth wide, revealing some big old chompers. Yeah, not exactly leaving me shaking in my boots, admittedly. It's like they felt obligated to deliver one final scare, and I guess this is the best they could come up with. Oh well. Still, after 2 movies, we really know next to nothing about the Blue Skeleton, or just how their whole ornate operation works. It's definitely a sophisticated and well-organized group at the very least. If they ever do a part 3, they really should dive further into the Blue Skeleton themselves, maybe have Brandy being the one seeking them out this time, in order to find out their mysteries once and for all. Also, it's probably going to get progressively more difficult to stay underground with all these massive viral video hits they keep producing. More and more people are going to be trying to find them, and keeping this thing a secret for much longer is not going to be easy. Do you want to be underground or you want to be mainstream? You can't really have it both ways, you know what I'm saying? That brings us to the conclusion of this Ending Explained for the House's October Build 2. Like I said, I feel like there is still some story to mine in a potential part 3, so hopefully if that is in the cards, they avoid retreading the same ground once again, and really do something different with the franchise in the next entry. At this point, there is no word officially on a part 3 being in development, but you know, that could always change in the future. Anyway, don't forget before we go, you can send me requests for any movies or TV shows you'd like to see me explain by sending them my way on any of my social media accounts at FoundFlix. What did you guys think of the House's October Build 2 and its crazy ass ending? What would you hope to see in a part 3? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow. Thanks for watching FoundFlix. See you next time.